Hey folks, welcome to another Yami Noob Q&A. This is quickly becoming my favorite format because, well, it's a lot easier than scripting videos. And I do have a lot of fun interacting with you guys. You're asking a bunch of really great questions. If you want to be featured in the next Q&A video, drop a comment down below. I look through all the comments in this video to find questions for the next Q&A. So let's get started. All right. Arbello3862 has asked, what is your take on heavily modded motorcycle? Is it the more mods the better, or just what's necessary? So this might be a little bit of a controversial take on modifications, especially since they're so hot to do on YouTube. People love making their build videos. Well, build videos. I mean, bolting on parts is not a build, right? But, you know, people love modifying and changing stuff on their bikes. Personally, for me, my own motorcycles, I only change what is either broken or necessary to change. And what do I mean by that? I mean that, you know, if there's something on the motorcycle that is not working the way it's intended to, right? Like, let's say, for example, the braking system on the bike is not up to task. I need a little bit more finesse over the lever or more immediate bite from the pads, or something needs to change, then I'll adjust that. And I always think about the adjustments and mods basically around function over form. It's like, is it going to go faster? Is it going to stop better? Is it going to handle better? You know, I think of tires, I think of brakes, I think of, you know, ECU flash if the motorcycle comes with a really neutered system from the factory. So those are the kind of mods that I would do. Like my Ducati Monster 1100S, for example, I put a period correct Termignoni exhaust system on it. I put the factory race ECU into it. I want to swap out the grips so that they're nice and fresh again. In general, all I really want to do is just, I kind of keep it OEM plus is what I always think about. I want to keep the bike tasteful, OEM plus, just a few things here and there just to make it kind of above what the factory built it as, because I really think that the engineers from the factory are much smarter and better than your average motorcyclist. And anytime I see super modified motorcycles, usually those modifications are just like aesthetic. It's like underglow or like tape on the wheels or something like that. It's just all these kind of like silly aesthetic things. Or if it's not, if it's like, you know, somebody took an SV650 and turned it into a scrambler, I feel like at that point you should have probably just bought a different motorcycle. Massively changing the design brief of a bike is usually not a good idea, right? Like taking a street bike and trying to turn it into an adventure bike, or taking an adventure bike and trying to turn it into like a supermoto or something, tends to not really work that well. So with modifications, really just keep it simple, keep it functional, keep it tasteful. That's what I always say. All right, Steven Strange X asked a question here with 7 little thumbs ups. Newish rider here. How the hell am I supposed to ride to and from work when it's 105 degrees outside? Got any tips for beating the Texas heat? So I definitely have some tips for beating the heat, but I think in general, the number one tip I have is after a certain point of humidity and heat, I just try to not ride, or I'm going to be riding outside of the hot times of the day. So what I do during the summer here in Texas is I hold what I call summer hours. So I try to go and ride between, you know, 7:30 a.m. and 11 in the morning when it's not as hot. You know, the peak heat of the day between like 2:30 and 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm not even outside in general. It feels like Satan's kitchen out there. But if you are riding back from work, you know, it's going to be 4:30 to 5:30. That's usually one of the hotter parts of the day. Here's a few things you can do. The first thing you can do is buy ventilated gear. So there's textile gear that has tons of like zippers and layers, and just try to get as much airflow to your core and your neck and your head as possible. Your helmet should have as much airflow in it as well too. But an underrated tactic that a lot of people don't talk about is take a balaclava or a neck gaiter and dunk it into some ice cold water, specifically with ice. You put that on your neck or your head for the balaclava, and once you start rolling, that wind on that cold water is basically going to act like an AC system. It's really nice. I think also riding with a nice cool hydration pack is a good choice as well. And if all else fails, you can also wear a cooling vest as well, but that's not really you know, feasible for leaving work, for example. Sometimes if you work like a normal office job, you know, doing the ice dunk in water for the neck gaiter trick might be your best bet. But yeah, in some of these days here in Texas when it's like 103, 105 degrees, yeah, I don't even really want to ride. Like today I have to go ride back home from Yamanoob HQ here, and I'm not really looking forward to it, but I'm just glad I'm on the Touareg today and not the Monster. All right, next up is Greg Ferris 9378. He's asked, with all the riding you do, you're probably pretty skilled. Thank you. I think I'm decently skilled, but I'd never say that I'm like super skilled or whatever. Question is, what was your worst injury and was it your fault? So, worst injury I've ever had on a motorcycle, it was a compound injury. Had several injuries from one crash that I had back in early 2017. I had a crash that was pretty well publicized here on the internet, unfortunately, because the person I rode with decided it would be a great idea to post about it without my consent. So that was not great. But I collided head-on with a car in the oncoming lane, completely my fault. We were on a one-way in, one-way out road. We thought we had the road to ourselves, so we were just cutting up, going over the lines and stuff, and got really unlucky, had a car coming the other way. Totally my fault, really boneheaded move. But anyways, I collided head-on with that vehicle. I had a compound fracture in both bones in my arm here. I shattered my elbow. I cracked my hip. I broke parts of my vertebrae. Injured my foot. No head injuries, which is pretty good. No head injuries. Cut part of my chin open. Yeah, that whole incident was single-handedly the worst injury I've had from riding motorcycles. I've never broken any bones riding on track. I've only gotten battered and bruised a little bit from riding on track, but never actually like hurt. But yeah, that one where I collided head-on with the car, definitely the worst. If you're considering colliding head-on with a car, I don't recommend it. It is very painful. So yeah, I got a lot of hardware in my arm now. I've got 2 giant plates here. I've got 9 screws in my elbow. I actually broke part of my hand too, which I forgot about, so I have a plate here too. But yeah, that's why you see that pretty gnarly scar. Huge scarring back here too. I had to have like 4 different surgeries, nerve damage surgery, reconstructive surgeries. I was in intensive rehab and rehabilitation and the ICU for 3 months, 2.5 months, something like that. So don't recommend it. Trying to never do that again, that's for sure. And I still have some nerve damage in my hand and arm from that incident. I can't quite open and close my hand in the same way with the same dexterity that I have with this one. It's pretty close. This is like 80%. This is 100%, obviously. But yeah, I just can't. There's certain things I can't quite do perfectly with this hand and arm, but can still hit the brakes, still hit the throttle. That's all that matters. Hosek11 asked me, would you mind showing us your bike workshop? What amenities should I think of as a new rider? So my little workshop that I have for my bikes, I've kept it pretty simple over the years. I've got a pretty sweet like Craftsman tool chest and toolbox combo. You guys have seen it in videos. It used to be here at Yamanoob HQ, and then we moved to a different property that we have here in Austin, and I expanded that location a little bit. And so I moved a lot of my tools back home because now I've got an HVAC controlled like 3-car garage set up at my other property. And so I moved all the tools back there. But in some videos, you're able to see that big tool chest I have. And that pretty much houses all of my stuff that I've kind of collected over the years, like, you know, your standard spanners, wrenches, hex tools, Allen keys. Like, I just have like all the tools I've collected. And basically my whole MO is like, you know, if I'm going to tackle a project and I don't have the tools, I'm going to buy the tools and then I just keep the tools forever. I never sell the tools, get rid of tools, and you certainly never throw away tools. Tools are always meant to be given to somebody else. Tools are like books, in my opinion. You should never throw away a book or a tool. Somebody could use that, so try to give it to somebody. But it's all pretty simple hand tools. I have a couple specialty tools that I've gotten over the years. I have this really neat little preload sag measuring tool from Slacker, which is kind of neat. I've got some specialty tools I've gotten over the years from working on Ducatis and stuff like that. But in general, it's nothing too fancy. I just have that big tool chest, a couple rear stands, a front stand, and I have a bike lift from Harbor Freight that I bought like 7 years ago. And everyone at the time told me that it's a piece of junk and I shouldn't buy it, but it's still working great. So joke's on them. That thing was like half off. It was awesome. Okay, Mark Dudas2230 asked, what are your tips for breaking through plateaus in skills and lap times at the track? So just just to preface this, I am, I've done some club racing. I'm an expert level track day guy, but I'm not a professional racer. I'm not the most skilled or knowledgeable person in the world. So take all of my opinions and advice with a grain of salt. I'm just a guy who's done this at a decently high level for a pretty long time. So to break through a kind of a mental plateau or a skill set in track day riding and your lap times, I'd say break down your laps and break down your skills into small chunks. What do I mean by that? I mean, the next time you go on track, focus on one thing. Try to get better at one thing at a time until it just becomes muscle memory. For example, like if you want to focus on your foot position, right? Because foot position is a big thing on track. Keeping on the balls of your feet, pointing them in the right direction before you get to the corner, positioning yourself and your body in the right way all starts with your feet. And you want to get your feet pointed in the right way. And if you think about the whole day, you're just thinking about your feet, at some point, it's just going to manifest as muscle memory. You're not even thinking about your feet being in the right position and preloading your body before the corner and all that. And once you have that as muscle memory, then work on the next skill. Maybe next time you're going to say, I'm going to try to find more place where I can go wide open throttle on this racetrack. I'm going to try to get to wide open earlier, hold wide open for longer, and find areas where I can achieve 100% wide open throttle. Maybe it's between corners. Maybe it's picking up a little bit earlier than you did last lap. And the skill just comes over time. Track riding and racing, it's one of those things where, Garrett Gerloff talked to me about this, where it's like all in the details. And it's like the best riders simply are able to piece together all of these really small little details and do them all really well, all at the same time. They all brake really well. They all open the gas really well. They all do these tiny little things perfectly, all gelled together. And that's what you got to work on. Your skill sets right now, I assume, you're doing the building blocks until you can have all of these coalesce and come together and all the little details. And then that's when you start thinking about stuff like, am I using 100% of this racetrack? Am I maximizing the geometry of the track? Because that's all riding on track really is. It's a geometry problem and a gas and brake problem, right? People always ask me, I want a faster lap time. I'm like, well, just go faster. It sounds stupid, but it's true. You just literally need to open the gas more and brake later. And if you are maximizing your room on the track, it's just a geometry problem. You will achieve a fast lap time. A fast lap time is just simply a theoretical maximum of the bike's capabilities and a geometry problem. So just one step at a time. Just think about one thing, and then you break through that plateau and the next level and the next level and the next level, and all of a sudden you're riding at an expert level pace. It's weird. And then it's like really calm and simple on track. It's odd. It's odd. All right, Faf Racing 22 asked quite a few questions here, but they all kind of are related, and I thought it was really cool. I want to answer them. I said, would love to hear your opinion on the track day versus racing debate in today's modern world of sport bike riding on the racetrack. Here's a few questions to consider. Should track day organizers push riders into racing? Should it be mandatory for novice racers to have a minimum amount of track day mileage before they can race? Should race organizations host their own provisional track day program? So this is a great question, and it's the reason why I think here in Texas, one of our biggest track day organizers, Ride Smart, has actually purchased the CMRA. That's the Central Motorcycle Racing Association. That's the organization that sanctioned through the AMA, was running all of the races here in the central region of like Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana. I think it was just those states. I don't think we did anywhere else. And it's an interesting question because there's a lot of guys that are just interested in riding on track and not interested in racing. And I never really understood that, because to me, the point of riding on track is to build up skills such that you can go race. Because what happened to me was I was kind of plateauing just being like a track day guy until I started racing, because the level where racers are versus track day guys are is so crazy different, and the gap is enormous. And I really would like for track day guys to be able to bridge to that gap a little better. I was blown away because when I started racing, I was already riding in the advanced group. I was one of the fast guys at the track. I could barely keep up with the novice class racers at that advanced track guide pace. That's how crazy the actual racing guys are. And then you look at the expert level guys in racing, and you think, well, how the hell would I ever do a lap time like that? You know, at some of these tracks, you know, over the weekend, you know, I was pretty happy with my pace, and I'd see what the expert level guys are doing, and I'm like, I have to find 5 seconds. Where am I going to find 5 seconds? You know, that's crazy. And then the gap to professionals is even bigger. And so I think that racing gives you a kind of accelerated level to proficiency with riding on a racetrack, because you are being pushed by people. And, you know, oftentimes with track day guys, like they imagine themselves like, oh, I have the perfect line, and I have the perfect, you know, apex, and I do everything perfectly. And racing is insane because there is no perfect in racing. All there really is I'm going to get ahead of that guy in front of me, and I'm going to block him. I'm going to take these crazy lines and shapes. And, oh, I made a mistake because I got in over my head and my adrenaline's way high and this is nuts. Racing is so different than just doing track days. And I would love to see, like we're doing now with Ride Smart and CMRA, a tighter connection between the two. Because not only is racing more interesting and builds your skills faster, it's also a heck of a lot of fun. I think that running laps by yourself at a racetrack is very soothing, very interesting, but ultimately rubbing against somebody else and, you know, like getting out there and just seeing what they're doing and you're doing, like that's the fun of it, really, you know, and because you can't do that on public roads. You just can't get to that point where, you know, you're banging bars against somebody on the road. That's not possible, right? And so it's such a unique experience with motorcycling. And I would really love if there was, you know, like maybe you do a few like track days and then like you do like a provisional race and just see how you feel and see how it goes. There's some liability issues and it can be a little dangerous, but yeah, definitely probably a topic for a broader video. But yeah, I would love to see a more defined pipeline for track day and racing guys and just a tighter connection between the two. Because it did me a world of good when I started endurance racing in 2020, and then I built my own team in 2023, and I sprint raced the big bikes and stuff. It taught me so much. I learned so much actually going to race. One final point about this, because I just thought of it too. One thing I would love to see changed or removed somehow is I'm really tired of seeing like novice level guys showing up on like Panigale V4s and R1s and S1000 RRs. There should be some sort of system in place where it's like, if you've never been on a racetrack before, maybe you don't show up on a 200 horsepower motorcycle because it's just kind of silly. Maybe there could be some sort of pipeline or system where people got to ride small bikes on track for a bit and then advance to the big stuff, because it just literally doesn't make any sense to put someone who is inexperienced on such a fast motorcycle on track. Like I said, lots to say about this. Kung Fu Panda 636, good username, has asked, would love to see a multi-part video series, Road Trip Tail of the Dragon. Actually, would be even cooler if you got a couple of people to do the ride with you and swap out bikes once at the Tail of the Dragon. I suppose that's not a question, but more of a suggestion, so we'll keep it brief. Yes, I would love to do Tail of the Dragon. That is one of the most iconic motorcycle destinations in all of the USA. And I would really want to go because I know it's around the North Carolina area, and they also have in Asheville the Moog factory. I'm a big music guy, so I'd love to see the Moog synthesizer factory. I think that'd be really cool. Stitch together a trip like that with Tail of the Dragon and some cool, you know, Smoky Mountain roads and what is it, like Blue Sky Highway, Scenic Highway. There's Skyway. I don't remember what it's called. There's a road near the Tail of the Dragon that everyone says is better than the Tail of the Dragon. So I'd love to see that one too. So I've never been over there on a motorcycle, and I think I'd really enjoy it. Whoa, hey, hold on a sec. This is my Triumph Trident 800 that I'm giving away on my website, yammynoob.co. You guys already know the deal. Become a member, pick up some merch, and you can be as lucky as Ryan from California, who won our Tuono V4, or maybe Amanda in Oklahoma, who won the Panigale V4, or Hank, who won the Gorilla 450 up in Ohio. Wait a minute. Hank's a dog. Jared, the owner, actually won the motorcycle, although I think Hank might be up for our best beginner rider of the season. Click that link below, get your chances locked and loaded to win this Trident. Don't miss it. John Bengal has asked, with the new MotoGP rules, do you think smaller displacement V4s will trickle down to the market, or are we wait and see mode with the V3R? So this is super interesting because we recently got news that in World Superbike, where right now stuff like the Panigale V4R and S1000RR currently race as homologated bikes, they just increased the displacement maximum to 1200 cc's in that category. Why did they do that? I'm not exactly sure, because now there's bikes like the RSV4 that could be competitive. Even something like the Triumph Speed Triple, you could maybe run in that. I mean, it's not going to be competitive against a V4R, but it's like weird that the homologated bikes are now going to have humongous engines up to 1200 cc's, but then the MotoGP bikes are 850s. And the whole reasoning behind it was, oh, the bikes are getting too fast, let's slow them down. But I will reference the great works of Matt Oxley and Peter Baum. It's all about the tires, not necessarily the engines themselves and the power output. If you want to slow bikes down, you got to do that through the aero, through the tires, not necessarily the engine or capacity. But I am very happy to see that the MotoGP bikes are going to be more normal. They're not going to be as weird as they used to be. Like current MotoGP bikes are really weird bikes. They're not even normal. Like the ride height devices and all the aero and how big and long and crazy they look, they're just not even like normal bikes anymore. But I've already seen inklings that Aprilia is wanting to make some sort of like 800-ish cc V4 to have road relevancy with their MotoGP bikes. Because at this point now, if you make an 850 MotoGP bike, there's nothing that anyone's making that has any relevance to the GP bikes anymore. And that's a big problem to sell motorcycles. You know, if you have these crazy prototype bikes that have no bearing in reality for what people are buying on the road, then it's a big problem. And it's why World Superbike actually started in the first place. You know, they were selling these homologated bikes you could go out and race, because in MotoGP, which was 500 cc's at the time, those two strokes, they didn't have as much road relevancy anymore, and two strokes were getting phased out. And so then that's why MotoGP went to four strokes, because they still wanted that connection to road bikes. And so I don't know what it's going to look like. I think it'd be really cool if we got 800 cc-ish V4s and four cylinders, something that has less winglets, something that is less extreme, something that's a little more fun to ride. I think that's the trend that everyone wants to go towards. It's like, let's optimize for fun. Let's optimize for ease of use and, you know, something that's enjoyable, because the vast majority of us are not capable to exploit the vast capabilities of a competition grade machine, let alone a MotoGP bike. So I think doing stuff that's more close to what they're doing in MotoGP and then bringing it to the road, I think it'd be pretty cool. Yeah. All right. Adrian H 2048 asks, hey Yam, I'm going to my first race weekend next month. Can you talk about race prepping a motorcycle? What do you recommend doing or staying away from if it's also my daily? Once again, it's the Street Triple RS. So if it is an actual race weekend and not just a track day, I would say consult your racing organization's handbook and see what they require for you to do to prep up your motorcycle. Depending on the org that you're running with, they're going to have some sort of handbook or PDF that will walk you through everything that needs to get done. Typically, it's full race plastics, a belly pan that holds fluid. You're going to want to get your bolts safety wired, your critical bolts. That's your brake calipers, your oil drain. I believe front and rear axle also need to be safety wired to some degree. Your throttle needs to open and close completely. Your brakes need to work. There's a lot of little things that you need to do. So I would say that if it's not that, if you are just saying it's a regular track day because you're saying it's your daily as well, normally all you need to do is just make sure there's nothing leaking, your tires are good, and your lights are taped up. So just get some painter's tape, put it on your headlights for the Street Triple, put it on the mirrors. Remove your mirrors, honestly, is better. And then should be good to go. And make sure you got good tire tread and everybody's happy. Yeah. Kiang and he 4048 has asked, what kind of physical exercises would directly allow you to ride and handle a bike better? And what kind of exercise do you personally do on a daily basis? So I'll answer the second one. Currently, right now, I'm unfortunately not doing any exercises on a daily basis. I'm hitting some weights in the gym, maybe like 2-3 times a week, just some upper body stuff, a little bit of lower stuff as well, just to keep my muscles active. I need to be doing a little bit more cardio because I used to be a huge cyclist. I was man, I was cycling so much. And I think cycling is one of the best activities to have fitness for riding on a racetrack because it builds your quadriceps, which are the big muscles in your legs that you usually use a lot when you're riding on track. And you need, in general, really strong legs and strong core to ride on track. You don't need as much upper body, to muscle the bike around. If you look at the physiques of Marc Marquez, Fabio Quartararo, Aleix Espargaro, who loves to post himself shirtless on Instagram for some reason, all these guys are lean and mean, like none of them are super bulky. They obviously have muscle mass because they're strong and they need to be able to move these bikes around at pace, especially high speed direction changes. But in general, they're not super bulky. What they do have, though, is incredible cardiovascular fitness, which cycling can give you, and leanness. And the third thing that is very underrated, in my opinion, is your general joint strength. So I struggled with this for the first 2 years that I was riding on track. I used to get terrible pains in my knees after doing a track day. And I was like, why am I getting these horrible pains in my knees, right around my knees and my joints? It wasn't my quadriceps because I was already cycling and I was strong. What I realized is that I did not have enough strength in my joints for impact resistance. Because what happens on track is, you're basically standing on the tips of your feet, on the balls of your feet for 30 to 40 minutes at a time. And that places a tremendous amount of stress on your knee joint, not necessarily just the muscle. You need muscles to work it, but the knee itself is really stressed. And so that's why you see a lot of GP guys. They run a lot, they do jumping jacks a lot, they do jump rope a lot. They force that conditioning for the joint to withstand those forces. That's really where people complain about, quads and legs hurting after a track day. That's really where it comes from. And now it's really nice. Like I just did a track day at Coda the other day. I did every single session all the way to the checkered flag. Next day, no knee pain, no leg pain. Like, even though I'm not cycling as much right now, I still feel very happy that I have enough built-in strength and memory in my joints to withstand that stuff. And it's also seat time too. A lot of people get really caught up in the whole cross-training thing. They're like, oh, I'm going to do cycling and running and lifting weights. But really, if you want to get better at riding a bike and fitter at riding a bike, you just need to ride the bike more. And that's why I started endurance racing, for example. Nothing gets more bike fitness than just spending an hour on a racetrack doing laps and laps and laps. So that's one way to think about it too. Also, salads are cheaper than carbon fiber. If you want to go faster, lose some weight. It's a great thing to do. All right, Robs93, are you planning on driving more old bikes? Seems like your Monster sparked an interest in you. There's lots of legendary bikes to ride and review. I bet I'm not the only one that would love that. I would love that too. Actually, Michael Neves, we talked about him on the last Q&A. Good old Nevesy over there in the UK. He's been doing some cool series where he's riding and reviewing other people's older bikes, some more of the legendary classic motorcycles. The reason that it would maybe be difficult for me is I have a very strict and timely and streamlined process in how I make my videos. I don't want to say I only work 3 days a week, but I bulk in a lot of my work in 3 days so that I have more time to spend with my family and to do other things that I like to do. I don't want to work 5 or 6 days a week, so I have complete control over my schedule, so I'd like to bulk them up in 3 days when possible. Do all the scripting, the writing, the filming, all that stuff, and then 4 videos comes out on the channel, and it's really nice. So finding and sourcing somebody else's motorcycle, getting them to bring it by, reviewing it would add a lot of time and energy. And I talked about this in one of the previous Q&As about opportunity cost when it comes to making videos, and spending 2 days making a review on an old bike that maybe would only get like 20 or 30,000 views would be something that could be cool to do, but maybe not in the height of the season. So you guys watch this space, this winter when I got some more time and bandwidth to do stuff that's just more fun or goofy. One of the things I'm going to be doing is the next giveaway bike after the Trident 800 is going to be a Hornet SP from Honda. And that bike I'm going to keep for about 3 to 4 months to do a bunch of modifications, upgrades, thorough testing. More of like a long-term test. I want to put like 2,000 miles on that bike, flash it, modify it, change it, adjust the tires, and just see what I can do with the platform before giving it away. And while I'm doing that, maybe, if I find a way to have people give me cool motorcycles I can try for a day, because my process to review motorcycles now is very streamlined as well too. I can usually do a complete review on a motorcycle in about 48 hours. So if you guys saw my Trident 800 video, the review we did, that whole thing took about 48 hours between the initial test ride, the scripting, the filming, the studio portion, and then I handed it off to my editor who pieces it together, and he takes about a day to edit that too. But it's usually 2 days prep time, production time to make a full review. So if someone could give me their bike for 2 days, I can do a video like that. So just stuff to think about, some inside baseball for you guys here. PN Mora has asked, have you ever been to Portugal? Faro, the capital of the Algarve district, hosts the largest gathering of motorcycles in all of Europe. It's been going on for 44 years. It's 4 days of bikes and concerts with motorcyclists staying in tents. It's phenomenal. This year, 17,000 motorcyclists attended. That sounds awesome. I have been to Portugal before. I actually did my honeymoon in Lisbon and a little bit in Majorca, which is not Portugal. We went to the island for a few days, but love Portugal. It's really cool too because I'm a fluent Portuguese speaker. I speak Brazilian Portuguese, so it's a little bit harder for me to understand Portugal Portuguese. I struggle a little bit, but I love the country, love the vibe, love the people, love the scenery. I've gotten a few times close to maybe purchasing property in Portugal or like getting a visa over there. For a while they had the golden visa thing over there where you would pay a certain amount of money and you could basically get a visa. And that was pretty interesting to us and our family. I was like, oh, maybe we could do that. After the 2024 election, you kind of start thinking, you're like, maybe we should get property overseas. Ended up not pulling the trigger. It was just too tumultuous as we had our 2 children. But in general, love Portugal. Would really love to spend more time there. I'm hoping that when my kids are a little bit older, what I want to do with them over the summer, if we keep living here in Texas, because the summers here are just so brutal, we want to maybe go and spend time somewhere else that's a little bit more temperate during that time. So yeah, maybe go out to Portugal, rent a big house, maybe go to this motorcyclist event would be pretty cool. But yeah, love the country, beautiful people, beautiful food, beautiful history as well too. All the different influences from the ancient Moors, the Arabic influence, the European influences. It's just such a cool place, such a cool place. All right, Dr. Ploppers, weird name, has asked, with the popularity of the T7 continuing to grow, do you think Yamaha will ever make a T9 or a T1 to compete with the bigger ADV bikes? Honestly, no. I think what Yamaha should do, and hopefully will do, God willing, they will do this and figure this out before they get their lunch completely eaten, is Yamaha needs to make a smaller Tenere. Yamaha needs to make a CF Moto Ibex 450 killer, and they need to make a CF Moto 450 SS killer. All Yamaha has to do, all they got to do, is make a 470 or 480cc cross-plane twin based on the CP2. Just shrink the CP2 into a small one, make that into an R4 and R5, and then make that into a small adventure bike offering that's priced around $7,800 or something like that. That's what Yamaha should do because that's where the market is going. Making a big T9 based on the 900 or 890cc CP3, I don't think that's a good idea. Making a T1 based on the CP4, that's also not a great idea. That would be a sport touring bike at best. Yamaha doesn't have anything in their lineup to compete correctly with the big ADV bikes. And I don't really think that's their lane either. I think their lane should be more of like the entry-level stuff, but they've just really dropped the ball lately. So instead of doing a big bike, I think they should do a little bike. All right, Cjone764 has asked, how do you feel about what I would call fake provenance in motorcycles? Interesting. I'm talking about things like the Lamborghini Ducati or many of the MV Agusta special editions, etc., compared to homologation specials like the Yamaha OW02 R7. Very cool bike, by the way. It feels like they're trying to engineer specialness rather than actual special stuff that is earned, at least to me anyhow. I'd love to know your thoughts, Yam. This is a great question, and it's something I've been thinking about as I've seen Ducati be the most egregious offender of this specific tactic in motorcycling of basically trying to, and Triumph does this too a little bit, but not as bad, but trying to piggyback off of like luxury adjacent brands to create this like, oh, look at this $80,000 limited edition motorcycle. And all it really is just a cash grab for really rich guys who want to just park their money somewhere. Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's that interesting. And I'm kind of bored of all the special editions. And I honestly, like, people people are going to think this is weird, but I blame Porsche for all this nonsense because Porsche started doing this years ago where they figured out that every year they could make a special edition and charge like $600,000 for some ridiculous Safari 911 or Sport Classic 911, and everyone would just buy it and people would go gaga for it because there's too much damn money in circulation right now. And I've just never really thought that that was very cool. I think, like you said, I totally agree. Like bikes that have a homologated purpose or have earned their livery in some capacity, you know, if it's a special edition that has a livery that harkens back to the company's past, I think that's really cool. Like all the stuff Ducati's doing for the Centenario bikes with the special liveries and the paint jobs, I think those are at least cooler because that's Ducati's own legacy and history, rather than, you know, a Supreme Edition Street Fighter V4 or a Lamborghini Diavel. It's just like it's built specifically for short form algorithmic feeds. You know, it's definitely a stop the scroll phenomenon when you have a Lamborghini Diavel in your feed, and I just think it just feels really cheap to me. It feels really cheap and lazy, and nothing about it is motorsports are interesting to me. And like I said, Triumph does a lot of the same stuff. They did like I think they did a collab with Breitling, the watch company, for one of they always do James Bond and like Elvis Presley and all these ridiculous IP crossovers. And really what it is too is it comes from, you know, the Marvel Universe stuff and the limited edition, like, I don't know what the hell, Baby Yoda Happy Meal as well too, you know? And I've always thought that was very lame as well. I would much rather that Ducati makes more laser-focused special editions that have a higher degree of performance or something unique about them. And they still do that to an extent. They make S versions of their bikes. They make SP versions. They make SP V2s or whatever. But I just, the super top end where all it is just a paint job, pretty lame, honestly, all things considered. I would wish that they would stop doing that, but clearly enough people buy them that they don't need to stop making them. So, yeah, a fool and his money are easily parted. Let's just put it that way. You'll never catch me buying a limited edition Lamborghini Panigale or whatever. I could not care less about that stuff. Could not care less. That's actually why I gave away a stock base model V4, because in my mind, I'm like, this is the best value Panigale you can get. You don't need the S. You don't need the R. This has so much for not much money. But that's just me. That's just my bag. All right, and last for today, Warren M12 has asked, is a CBR 250R to a CBR 600R an appropriate jump? I've been riding 2 seasons now and considering an upgrade. Yes and no. I guess it depends on what you've done with the CBR 250R. And you have to, when you jump on the 600, after your 2 riding seasons, you know, just understand that you're jumping on something that makes like 90 more horsepower, 80 more horsepower, delivered in a smooth, predictable way, but still a much larger engine, much more cylinders. It's still going to hit pretty hard compared to your 250. But no, I think that's an appropriate jump. People used to do that jump all the time back in the day before the 400 and 500 class beginner bikes became the norm. Everybody would do, like, you know, you'd be on a Ninja 250 for a while and then you go for a 600. So that was a pretty established pipeline. It's not that crazy because as long as you have normal throttle discipline, you understand the brakes, you understand that you're on a bigger machine with more power and more torque, it shouldn't be that bad. I kind of like it. You're kind of doing like an old school progression. Most people nowadays go like, you know, Ninja 500 to MT09, but, you know, you're going 250 to 600. That's like, that's the way we've always done it. You know, there's almost like a pride in doing it the old school way. So no, I don't think that would be too bad. I think it would be pretty reasonable to do, actually. Well, boys, that's going to wrap up the Q&A for today. I hope you enjoyed. Drop me some questions down below. Again, I always look through these to find the best questions I can. I'll put a little pinned comment. You guys drop general questions, and we'll hopefully find some good ones for the next episode. Thanks so much for checking out today's show. I appreciate it. I'll catch you in the next one. See you later.